Okay, good. There you go.
Right, good. Well, it looks as if we're ready then, so we'll make a start on this parish council meeting. Just for anybody who's watching, I shall be taking the chair this evening because Nick Brown is unable to make it. So I would firstly say welcome to everybody. Welcome, obviously, to our parish council members and officers, and also anybody who's out there watching us on Zoom, on the stream, either this evening or perhaps in the next day or two on Catch Up TV. So we'll start with parishioners' question time. Now, I've not received any. Has anybody else had any questions in?
No.
I only had a verbal question, John, which was to do with what's happening with the Stockwell. Is the PC planning any maintenance on the Stockwell? But that can be dealt with maybe under other items if need be.
Well, we could ask it. Paul, I guess I'd ask if you've got any update on Stockwell. I think you're more closely involved than anybody.
I'm involved purely because of proximity, and in fact, funny enough, I was discussing with Jackie a few days ago. I went and cleared Stockwell with Louis, our Frenchman, about 3 or 4 months ago, but obviously these things grow quickly. So there's two issues. Number one is sort of keeping on top of what's there, and a little bit that might be covered in mine and obviously particularly Rose's report. The second is repair of, which is, just basically has not been progressed. Let's put it that way. So it needs doing, but nothing has been progressed on it.
No, fair enough. I guess, we'll pick up the bit related to the planting later, but as regards the repairs, I suppose that until we can find somebody to put their hand up and take a lead on that, then nothing much is going to happen, is it?
I think so. I sort of half looked at it, but frankly, I'll be quite honest. I have more than enough parish council stuff on my hands to be able to deal with it. So I think someone needs to own it, and I don't think it's necessarily a parish councillor. I think there are other people in the village that have a vested interest in it, and perhaps someone would be nice if someone volunteered to say, we'll take a look at it and see what needs to be done. The actual repair work is it's jobbing builder type stuff, and once we get the thing cleared on the outside, I think it will become more apparent how to manage it on an ongoing basis.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm guessing that nobody around the table here is going to put their hand up to take a lead on this, unless anybody wants to surprise me. So just to pick up on Jackie's point, I did discuss it with Louis this afternoon, and probably next Monday we can go and do the clearance, which is Jackie's main issue.
Yes.
So a lot of the stuff can come out of there. Just needs a couple of trailer loads, my quad bike to get it out of the way. But on an ongoing basis, it'd be nice if we did have some ownership elsewhere, really, so that it can be properly managed.
Yes. All right. Well, let's put it down on record, pretty much in that form, that we really could do with somebody to pick up and lead that as a little mini project, and it would be good if we could find a volunteer from the village to do that for us. And obviously, if there is anybody listening on the feed who is interested, then we'd love to hear from you. I think that's about all we can do with it for the time being. If there's no other parishioners' questions, then we'll move straight into the main agenda. Item 1 is apologies, and we've already heard that that's Nick and Julia and Robert for this evening. The next item is declarations of interest. So is there anybody who feels that they need to declare any interest of any sort in anything that we've got on the agenda?
No.
Okay, thank you. We then move to item 3, which is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. That's the meeting that was held on the 15th of June. So have you all had a chance to read through them? And does anybody have any comments to make on accuracy to start with? That being the case, could I have a proposer for their adoption, please? Paul, a seconder. Martin. Okay, thank you very much. How have you been dealing with this, Helen, on remotely? Do you want me to sign my copy and send to you, or hang on to them, or how are you doing it?
I think probably the easiest thing to do is if I bring when we do first meet in reality, then I'll probably just bring the file with all the minutes in and get someone to do a job lot of signing them. Obviously, it's been recorded each time that they're being approved, so I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Sure. Okay, that makes good sense. Right, so let's move on then to the matters arising from the minutes. As usual, they are highlighted. Do you want to take us through those points, Helen?
Yeah, so the first one was an action for Keith to amend the draft risk register and to recirculate it.
Yeah, that's still outstanding. What I've done is I did put forward a couple of suggestions to Robert and John, including a draft of what Hadnam PC are using, which I've also forwarded on to Cuddington PC for their perusal. So that's still outstanding. So I will send a new proposal round in the next week or so.
Okay, so I'll just carry that action forward then.
Yes, we'll just mark that as ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Right, the next one, so it's the planning ones. So they've all been dealt with. The comments have been submitted for Cornerways and the lodge on Church Lane. So that's all been dealt with. Comments all submitted. And I think that was it for actual actions.
I think you need to record the comments on the lodge application, because the first one actually said there was no objections. I don't think the second one's actually said that what the outcome was. I can't comment obviously because it's a So the lodge was that we opposed that, so I'll record that. So there's no further action points in the minutes unless anybody's got anything else they want to bring up.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Can anybody else see anything in there that isn't covered on the agenda that you feel you'd like to?
Nothing that won't be covered. No.
Okay, that's good. So we will then move on to item 5, which is planning. I don't think we have anything new.
No.
You got let off light this time, Paul.
No, nothing at the moment.
We've diverted all the Hugo Fox emails.
We do seem to have done, don't we? Yeah. Let's not say it too loud. We'll get following.
There has been quite a load over the last 2 or 3 months, so it's nice to have a bit of a break, actually.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We'll be cracking through the agenda tonight. So next is the correspondence, and there's been the usual flood of stuff coming through, mainly from Buckinghamshire, which you're manfully, if I might say, sending on to us there, Helen, which is very helpful.
Yeah, it's a mammoth task.
You have picked out one that's come up. This was a request for a donation from the parish council to help fund the keeping of chickens on the allotments. Did you all see that?
Yep.
Yeah, it was an email from Mark Gillis on the 1st of July.
That's right. Yes.
I think the total funds requested are £895, and I think they're looking for around about a 50% contribution from the parish council.
And that's just a one-off.
I believe so.
Yeah, John, I've been on the sidelines of that. I think it's just a one-off to set up the original purchase of the laying pullets and the hen hut and a run.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Okay, so I think there's probably two things to look at as far as this is concerned. One is whether we have the powers to make a donation for purposes such as this, and the second is whether we think that this warrants such a donation. As far as I can see, on the first point, we do have that power. We can, I forget what the numbers were now, but we can donate to appropriate causes that we see fit. I think it's about £600 a year for every person on the electoral roll, or is it? Maybe got those numbers wrong, but anyway, it comes to about £6,000–7,000. So it's within our powers to do it. The question is, do we think it's an appropriate cause for the parish council to make a donation towards? I'll be interested to hear everybody's views on that.
I'm neutral. I couldn't decide, so I'm on the fence.
Any other views? Strongly for, strongly against? Marginally for, marginally against?
I might just come in on this. The plan is to invite, and they have already invited people to join in this little enterprise. They propose to buy between 8 and 12 hens. Hopefully for most of the year, those hens will lay 8 to 10 eggs a day. Let's say the average family uses, what, 2 eggs a day? It will benefit about 4 families. In my professional agricultural opinion, the parish-wide benefits don't seem to match up, but it is a small amount, and you know, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but its effect on the whole village is very limited.
Yeah, just on the question of the eggs, do you have any idea what the plan is? Are they going to sort of make them available to first come, first serve, or offer them through the shop, or what's the plan, Ian, or have you no idea?
Will there be a scramble for them?
Scrambled eggs.
As I understand it, the original proposal was to ask for contributions by interested parties, and those who were interested would put up a certain amount of funding to start it off, and they would be the beneficiaries of the eggs.
So have they got yeah, I think that's the thing that's missing for me, and I realize I should have gone back and raised this with Mark earlier, which is, you know, who is providing, you know, have they got sufficient numbers for the other 50%? But then it's the ongoing costs as well, and maintenance. So you need, you know, you need to have enough people. So I think I personally think it would be quite useful to know how many people have put their hand up to support this, because otherwise it won't go, you know, it'll just require more and more handouts. Otherwise it won't go very far unless they can show sufficient support.
Yeah, it was.
I think that would be a useful piece of additional information to request.
Yeah, through Maureen, it was put around to all the allotment holders. Are you interested? Do you want to join, contribute? I have to say, Jamie and I decided not to, because of the reasons I've come up with. That's not a sour grapes thing, but the ongoing costs are feed, obviously, replacement pullets as and when the hens get too old and need replacing.
Or eaten by foxes.
Sorry, Paul, go on.
Or eaten by foxes.
Yes, I mean, I presume they're going to wire net it all in and look after them properly. The other issue might be vermin, rats in particular. But the original thought was to get some pigs up there, which I wholeheartedly disagreed with, and I wrote a very long email to the Gillises saying I thought it was a stupid idea. Pigs are much more difficult, obviously, but hens, Keith, you've got some experience of hens at home.
Yep.
You know, a small run on a spare allotment, you know, could be made to work. Whether the parish council wants to support it as a parish thing, I personally have my doubts, but that's just my own advice to you. You obviously will decide.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, as long as you've got the, you know, the commitment from the right number of people, you know, in terms of just looking after the hens and actually the ongoing funding, then I think, you know, it is a nice thing, you know, for children in the village to come and see and actually, you know, I'm in principle, I'm in favour of it, but I think just understanding that there's a sufficient number of people who would contribute, because as you say, there are the ongoing costs, and you know, we don't want to just put, you know, it's not a great deal of money, but you know, we still don't want to waste it if there's not enough people there to support it afterwards. So I think we should, you know, and I'm sorry, I should have put that out as a sort of due diligence question ahead of the meeting, but
that's fair enough. Okay.
So I think maybe to ask Mark and Maureen for an update on the numbers interested.
Well, exactly.
I clarify, you know, the council's commitment to the parishes.
I'm happy to construct a question and copy everyone in.
Yeah. Can I just? Yeah. I mean, I think we certainly need to do that, but I just need to check that we are in principle agreed. I mean, John, Martin, any thoughts on this?
What was the amount of money involved that they're asking for?
Half of about 900, so just under 450. I mean, we don't have to donate half, of course. We could donate a third or a quarter or whatever we want, but they're suggesting a half.
Yeah, I mean, my views on it are, it seems to be a nice thing to do, but the returns on it seem to be pretty poor. And the question is, have we got better things to spend our money on?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting on the fence a bit as well. I mean, I've not made a great study of this, but it seems.
Indeed. Anything to add, John?
I mean, I think you know, if you like, I don't know whether my chosen words, seed corn, are appropriate. But, you know, I mean, I think, you know, the Parish Council has provided seed corn. You know, it is okay. It is just the allotment holders. I happen to be, Alyssa and I are one of them. You know, I think it's very, you know, in terms of justifying its benefit to the community, yes, of course, but you know, on the other hand, you know, we have, you know, supported community initiatives before. So I think, you know, I can't see the precedent is not there to do it. But, you know, maybe, you know, we do need to clarify, you know, a little bit about, you know, a little bit more some of the questions that, you know, Keith, you raised.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Well,
but
just for the
in principle, I think the Parish Council, you know, if there are, you know, worthy, you know, and the community doesn't have to be the whole community, it can be elements of our community, and so in principle I don't have a problem with it, but you know, obviously you know, maybe we do need a little bit more information on
yes, yeah. Okay, well, as I was going to say, for the record, my view on this was kind of, when I first heard about it, slightly taken aback, you know, oh, I don't know quite where that fits within our remit. And then I thought about it a bit and thought, well, yeah, I can see some of the youngsters in the village might well get something out of it. So it is possible to see some village benefit. I don't think it rests in the eggs, but at the interest level, I can see it's probably there enough to justify us popping a few bob into it. So I think on that basis, I would say that we are probably content in principle, but we do need clarification on the points that have been raised, which is how is the other half going to be raised, and are there some assurances in place that it's going to be funded in the reasonably long term, so that the money isn't found to go to waste within 6 months.
Exactly.
So, Keith, did you volunteer to draft a letter back? Did I
Yeah,
hear you
well,
say earlier on?
yeah.
Okay,
I've
thanks
done
very
it
much.
before, so I'll do it as penance.
Okay, thanks all for that one. And was there any other correspondence we ought to be worrying about?
There was one that I sent out on the 16th of July aimed at Paul, where there was someone was asking about some trees. They were buying a property, 9 Elmbrook Close, and they were asking about the ownership of some trees. Do you recall that, Paul?
Oh, yeah.
So it says the house, it's 9 Elmbrook Close. The house in question borders a footpath which runs from the junction of Elmbrook Close and Dark Lane through to Church Lane. As one enters the footpath from Elmbrook Close, there are a number of hazel trees on the left, around about 10. They're directly outside the boundary fence of the property. On the right-hand side, about 50 metres into the alley, there is a tall tree, which might be a copper beech, overhanging the hazel trees overhang the boundary fence, and they're quite tall. The copper beech is even taller. So the person's asking who's responsible for the maintenance of the trees, and if there is nobody responsible for their maintenance, are there any protection orders, or is there any other legislation governing the pruning or trimming of them to keep them at a reasonable height?
Right, okay. Well, sincere apologies, because I just don't recall that at all. I can answer some of those questions off the cuff, but I'll could you resend the email, because I just don't recall it.
I've just resent it to you.
Okay, thank you. Certainly, there is the conservation area and TPOs and things in place, but unlikely to be the nature of the trees you just mentioned. But let's take a look at it. Perhaps Ian and I could have a look and see if we can decide what's what.
Yeah,
So,
I think they're after a fairly swift response.
Are they? Okay.
Because obviously they want to kind of make a decision, I think, on whether to buy the property or not.
Oh, crikey, really?
Which I missed where you said that was, Helen. I do recall seeing the email. Can you just tell me again where it said it is?
It's 9 Elmbrook Close.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I thought it might be.
That's the one that borders right next to the road. Yeah, remember Hayes Tree.
Yeah, the one on the corner on the right, isn't it?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
is that something that you want to deal with separately?
Yeah, I'll pop down there on Wednesday to take a look and see if I can answer the questions. Otherwise, if we're unable to answer the questions, obviously their solicitor have to pick it up if they're looking to buy. It seems an odd, if they're making a decision whether to buy or not, depending on the trees, that's obviously a slightly strange, but
well, they just said whether I could have the height reduced is important in deciding whether I wish to buy this house.
Okay, no, yeah, I've seen. I've just not seen this. It's quite a long email. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Okay.
Paul,
Will you or via Helen get something back to them, Paul, after you've had a look?
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay.
Ian, are you free on Wednesday to have a look?
Yeah, I can.
I'll email you
whenever. Send me a time. I'll see you down there.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is that it on correspondence, or was there anything else to pick up?
I think we had an email in from Brian Green.
Yeah.
Oh yes, we did, didn't we? Yes. Not quite sure what to say about that.
Can I just make a couple of observations? I think item B was, I think that some of the councillors may have had a vested interest, brackets, which they did not declare at the beginning of the meeting. As I was one of the people that comment, I would just reconfirm the fact that I had no vested interest. And in specific response to the point about the cars parking, I've also raised this at the last meeting, because when the matter was originally looked at a couple of years ago, I was approached by a couple of parish councillors that expressed concern about the potential of parking within the village if it went ahead, and I passed that information on to the next parish council meeting. So I hadn't even thought of it, I have to say. So I was actually a messenger for villagers' concerns, which is all what we're all here to do. I think if there is any vested interest, I think that would probably the villagers expressing their concern that the potential of large-scale parking as a result of people coming into the village to park there and then cycle to Haddenham. So it wasn't a personal vested interest, it was actually passing on the comment from parishioners last time round and this time round as well.
Yeah, I think probably we need to go back to Brian and say that that's a fairly serious statement there, and
yep.
Could he therefore please provide more information that's led him to make such a statement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the opening paragraph, I note that he's suggesting that all the councillors should sign up for 2 sessions doing the traffic survey every week. I think just to remind that we're all very busy people, we're unpaid, and I think we'll do what we can, but very pleased to see that the large number of the parishioners have put up their hands to get involved here, because obviously it is a lot of parishioners have raised the serious question of speeding in the village, and it's good to see so many of them. We've even got Fenella there that going along on a scooter to go and do her stint. So that's this is one of those areas where I think it it doesn't take expertise, but it does take manpower, and it's good to see everyone helping out.
Yeah, I must say, when I read that first paragraph, I thought it's most unfortunate that there should be people in the village who hold that sort of view, given the amount of work that everybody here puts in.
Well, let's hope they're very limited numbers.
I think they probably are. But I think the important point is that point B. Helen, are you able to just draft something fairly brief for us on that, please, and send it to him? Just basically asking that he explains what he means by it.
Yeah. But confirm.
So particularly by point B, is it?
Point B, yeah.
I think, but yeah, well, I think on that we can just reconfirm that none of the councillors had a vested interest, if that's the case.
Well, we certainly can do that, but when a charge like that is made, it needs to
a little bit more
down.
explanation is needed. Yeah, yes.
So the reply needs to be centred around point B, not any of the other points.
No, a whole lot.
Sorry.
Well, I don't know. I would focus on point B. I think that's a serious point. I think his opening comments to me are just, let me say, unfortunate in this forum. But item B is more than unfortunate.
Yeah. Item A also implies that the councillors were unaware of what was being proposed, and certainly I think we were all very supportive of the work that Mike Haybrook was doing there to look at the cycle route. He's saying that some of the councillors did not know what it was about or what happened before. And certainly, obviously, there are those councillors that weren't members at the time, but the rest of us, I think, were very well aware of it, did a lot of research and work, and were very involved in the scheme, which I have to say, in principle, fundamentally sounded a great idea until the logistics of parking raised its head, and also where it starts and finishes. And I think Mike Haybrook was suggesting it should start on the Long Kendon Road by the railway bridge, which then posed an additional problem. But
yeah.
So I'll draft something in response to point B, and then I'll just run it past yourself first, John.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it that way. Thanks, Helen. Any other correspondence we should worry about?
I'm not aware of anything else.
Okay, thank you. In that case, let's move on. And I can find my correct piece of paper here.
I'm not leaving the meeting. I just need a glass of water.
Fair enough. The monthly finance report. No, we don't have Robert here with us. He has provided a report which just is a fairly brief report showing main items of expenditure and a month-end balance of just under £58,000. Did anybody want to ask any questions about that?
Yep.
Okay, in that case, we'll just take that as accepted. Right, reports from councillors attending meetings and outside organisations. Has anybody been anywhere doing things they want to tell us about?
Last Friday, I attended a Zoom meeting presentation on the subject of developing a tool for measuring carbon footprints, which could be used by, for example, parish councils. There was a sort of selection of parish councillors from across the country who took part in this. Essentially, it was just a kind of brainstorming session. It was pretty well organised, and various bits and pieces of information were discussed and proposed, and the company who are developing the tool said that they would produce a written report, which I will circulate in due course when it arrives. It's something which it's in its very early stages at the moment, but it looks as if it might be something which we could quite well use in the future.
Okay, all right. So it doesn't sound as if anything mind-blowing came out of it from what you say.
No, not at this stage. But I mean, it is something that we obviously need to be aware of in our sort of planning and integrated with all the rest of the things that we have to plan around.
Surely. Very well. Any questions at all on that or anything else? John?
Yeah, just to mention that obviously no meetings have happened, but we did, following our brief discussion at the last meeting, the Wadston area freight strategy, we've confirmed that we want to be involved with them in the future. I think we all agree it's very important. There are a lot of common challenges faced by villages such as ours, Cunnington, Ashington, Westcott and so on. You know, as we're sandwiched between the A418 and the A41, and obviously there's not a lot happening at the minute, but I think it is important that we keep abreast of developments and seize every opportunity we can to improve our situation in respect of Chearsley being a rat run, quite frankly. And I think perhaps partly related to that, perhaps I could just deal with it now, just to say that our survey is going to happen on Thursday. I'm still after one or two empty slots. I mean, we're pretty much there, but I wrote to everybody today just to give them the details, and if people are able to squeeze in a little bit more time or influence friends and family to join the team, but we're pretty much there. But that is the sort of thing that is very important for us to document our problems. You know, we can go with anecdotes, but, you know, if we've got substantial evidence, and that is very much the thinking behind what we're going to do on Thursday. Fortunately, the weather forecast looks reasonably good. I shall probably regret saying that now, but at the minute, my weather app says it's going to be okay. And I'm hoping that we'll manage to get through. We're not quite there in terms of numbers. We needed 40 people if everybody was going to do a 2-hour slot, but we're in sort of mid-30s at the minute, so we're nearly there. And I certainly appreciate all, you know, the 35 people or so who've already volunteered, and I'm hoping that we can cover off the rest. I mean, there are quiet phases during the day where we may be able to sort of double up on the chores a bit, but we're pretty much there. So I would like to to anybody listening who's volunteered, express my appreciation. I hope it'll provide some good documented evidence. I suppose the only slight concern I have is that, you know, still post-lockdown, are we really back to normal? We've had quite a lot of local disruption, which we're probably going to talk about a bit later on. But anyway, let's see how we go. We're committed to Thursday, and we will almost certainly have to do another survey probably in September, because one is simply not enough. So there we go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. I must say, all the documentation that you prepared, I received my pack today along with others, and it all looks in excellent order. I must say, if anybody out there is thinking or wondering whether to pick up the phone or not, please do. John's there. It's not onerous. It's superbly well organised. All you've got to do is turn up, follow some very simple instructions, and have an enjoyable couple of hours. So sitting in the sun, hopefully, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're on the edge, please do it and help us out. Okay. Next item then is subcommittee decisions for ratification. I don't think there's been any subcommittee work this month, has there?
No.
Okay. Officers' reports. Anything, Ian, you wanted to say other than what will be covered under tree matters for Paul?
Just related, but a quick update. We changed the pheromone traps in the big junction horse chestnut tree today, and the count this time was 469 compared with, I think, 527 at the last trapping. And the last set of lures were put in today. We'll do another count of the capturing round about the end of August, which will be the end of the season. And I will also then do another survey of all the trees in the parish that I can find to see what the extent of the disease is. But just a casual observation, really, the leaves, although infected up on the main tree, are certainly, in my opinion, not last year. And then if Paul needs me to say anything when we come to tree matters, then fair enough. But that was the leaf miners today. And could I post for the minutes, please, a thank you to Paul, Jay Gibson, for being the ladder man once again. I didn't really fancy climbing up the ladder, much as our beautiful tree is nice and friendly. But yeah, so if that could be noted in the minutes, it'd be much appreciated.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ian.
It was a fascinating exercise this afternoon, Ian, and Louis found it particularly so. He's gone back to do some more research, as you can imagine.
I'm pleased about that.
Is he going to prepare some French culinary dishes using leaf miners?
Right. Okay, we haven't got anything from Anthony, I don't think, have we? I've not had anything. Nobody's given. No. Right, so that's that one. Oxford Cambridge Expressway is the next item. Again, that's all pretty much quiet at the moment, I think, John, isn't it?
Very much so, yes. We did have a communication which you all saw from the Expressway group. They are in sort of in betwixt and in between at the minute. They are looking for new people to take the work of the group forward. I think they make a very valid point that although the situation is allegedly, in inverted commas, under review, the issue is by no means dead and buried. And even if the expressway doesn't go ahead, we still may have to, in our area, confront the possibility of additional significant housing development. So I think it is very important. And we've expressed we couldn't offer any human resources to the No Expressway group, but we will be very supportive. We were, you know, very committed and engaged. Keith, Ian, you know that we attended their meetings, and you know, it is important that we you know, keep our engagement. I hope they will find the right people to keep the group going forward. Certainly they were a very valuable source of information to us, and you know, the professor gave a, you know, excellent presentation at our village meeting, and
Yeah.
you know, we should definitely keep the lines open there, and that's really what we said to them.
Yeah. Is it worth keeping this as a regular item on the agenda, do you think, John, or is it just something
No,
we pick up as
not-
and when?
I think as and when now. We've yeah, you can take it off next time, Helen, unless anything
Okay.
happens, in which case I'll pop it back on again. But
Sure, yeah.
I don't think the prospect of any new news is there, but there is still a long-term issue, and we mustn't just let it go.
No, quite so. Right. So that's that one. Next item is tree matters. So this is over to you, Paul. And
Okay. Apologies, I sent a note through very late because I really didn't want to find myself talking for half an hour, but there is quite a lot to cover. But just to run through the items which I've listed. Firstly, the question of a tree survey has come up on numerous meetings in the past, and I'm pleased to say that Ian Houseman has agreed to undertake that, or offered, in fact, wasn't even agreed, wasn't asked, has offered to undertake the tree survey for the village. Obviously, we've got the Michael Edmonds, late Michael Edmonds list of the trees, or the survey of the trees from the 1978 plantings. Ian's been doing the chestnut trees. So what needs adding in basically are the pre-78 trees, which obviously includes the island, which has been planted or seeded since. So thank you, Ian, on that. Obviously, if there's any help required from unidentified trees, then obviously it's fair enough to call in, but it was an expense we were going to have to meet as a parish council, having decided to do it. And Ian so far hasn't asked for anything, so we're assuming a pint will suffice. But thank you very much, Ian, for undertaking that.
Or 2 pints.
2 pints, okay. What might be?
Yes, indeed, Ian. Thank you.
Ian's given his update on the what's name traps, the traps for the leaf miners, as I can never remember the Ferona, whether it's Ferona. So that's all going. I suppose are we like in a COVID-like situation here, Ian, where the numbers have gone down from 520 to 460? Are we looking at lowering the peak?
Well, I think this is more to be looked at in the longer term as a seasonal thing. I mean, you would expect the numbers to go down during the season because they'll come to the end of their breeding season. There are not going to be as many around. So what I intend to do is, if we run the traps again next year and maybe a few years on after that, we'll log the numbers so we've got a clear picture of what's actually happening. We might then send some guidance to parishioners who've got horse chestnut trees about what they can do to help if they want to.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. That's excellent. Next, just on to the various works which are listed in the last minutes, where we were looking at them, I think, the week after the parish council meeting. This one is still live. I have forwarded the quotation which I've had from Four Seasons for the work that's to be carried out. I appreciate we have authority to carry out works under certain levels without coming back to the meeting, but I wasn't happy with a couple of the costings there, and I've got one other quote which, as it happens, wasn't totally dissimilar to the one that Four Seasons came up with, and I'm also awaiting the details of a tree surgeon from the guy that's building the house next to Andy York's house. I can't remember what it's called there, but in the plot, because the trees at the bottom are the ones that face onto Hicks Path, and it's questionable whether some of those are in Hicks Path or in his garden. And his tree surgeon was going to be in contact so that we could make some decisions and get a second quote or a third quote in. I've also had, I've got one other one to approach, but basically, as far as this meeting's concerned, I feel particularly that work that the Hicks Path work, which Angela drew to our attention, really should be done. And what I would ask for is authority at this meeting for at least some of that work to be carried out. No, sorry, I'll go back on this in just a moment, so that we can move ahead on it. I was going to say authority for the whole lot, which is 2370, but I would like to discuss one of those items now before we move on, which is the middle tree on the walnut trees on the other path. John, what's it called? Remind me.
Farmyard Path.
Farmyard Path. Thank you very much. We have a dead walnut tree, which isn't unsafe, but at some stage is going to have to come down. And due to its size and location, the quote for removing that spot is £725, which again to me felt on the high side. But I do appreciate the difficulties someone's going to have in trying to take that down without destroying John's house or one of the neighbouring ones.
Yeah, I'd like to check on insurance before we take that one on board.
Well, absolutely. They're fully insured. So ideally, I'd like to probably deal with this outside the meeting, but if I could have authority to spend up to that, but with a view to making sure we've got 3 or 4 quotes before we proceed with it, that would seem the sensible approach, unless anyone's got any contrary views, really.
Yeah, I support that.
Your thoughts? Yeah, that sounds sensible to me. Just a small point on the figure there, Paul. The 2370, I think, is the ex-VAT figure, isn't it?
It's pre-VAT, yes.
Yeah, so I think we need to authorise the VAT inclusive figure.
Sure. Okay, whatever that comes out at. Yeah, so another.
That's 2844. I just
Thank
happen
you
to
very
have the
much.
sums ready.
Okay. Right. Okay. The next item was just
So take
on
that as
the.
approved.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody. And apologies for the, I've been a bit dilatory on that, but when someone doesn't come back to you and you don't chase them, time goes by very quickly, particularly at the moment. The last item is quite a complicated one, and again, I would like to probably deal with this in subcommittee form outside of this because it's going to take too long to go through. But as you know, we had an approach from Rosedale to give some advice to the parish council on general tree matters within the village. Having received the offer from Ian to deal with the tree survey, we've excluded that from the brief, but we've asked her to look very specifically at the verges throughout the village, where if you compare ours with some of the other villages around, we really are looking pretty ropey. I think that's probably the nicest way of putting it. There are lots of complexities. The starting point really is when the edges get mown by Bucks Council, or when they don't get mown. They're supposed to do it 4 times a year, they don't. We have the one I would like some authority on is that Rose has specifically suggested we just get it done twice a year and with our timetable, because they do tend to come at the wrong time. They've actually just done it, which is fine because the growing season for the wildflowers is finished. But you'll see in the email which she sent, which I've now forwarded to you somewhat belatedly, there are proposals there in relation to the timings of the Bucks Council and also obtaining a hazard or putting together a hazard map which says areas which we don't want cut where parishioners are currently looking after their own areas, and also cultivation licenses. It seems to be a relatively standard procedure, and Rosie's, I think, having initially thought that she was standing on the sidelines to give a bit of advice, we've roped her into doing quite a hands-on role, which we're very grateful for. She's done a great work for us, so we're very appreciative, and I'd like that minuted, please, that she's been very helpful. So the one area which I would like to discuss, which has a cost element attached to it, is that the first metre and a bit of the verges gets cut and then gets overgrown, nettles and everything else. And one of Rose's key proposals here is that we take on board someone to actually keep that cut in between the main cuts by the council. As you know, I think you will all have seen an email which we had from a chap called Tom Audley, who offered his services to the village. He actually does Dinton, and he does Cuddington Churchyard and somewhere else, Westlington. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I think Ian's met with Tom, and I've had 2 or 3 subsequent discussions, and Tom is very, very keen to get involved with Chearsley, and I think he's one of these people, perhaps Ian can explain this, but he has I think he takes pride in what he does, and he's looked at it, he said, this could be fantastic, this village, with some TLC, basically. Is that fair enough, Ian?
Yeah, fair enough. He was interested enough to walk down School Lane with me, and then we cut across the bottom of the village and walked up Church Lane. So I had a fairly good view of the issues facing the parish council in maintaining the verges. And I think if we can get out of this some sort of verge management plan with Rose's help, which the council could give its nod to, then we can start putting a plan of action into place to improve matters. Yeah.
Ian and I and Rose have had a few meetings. We've got through quite a bit of my wife's cake in the meantime.
Very nice too.
Yeah, and I think Rose has got quite excited by it as well. Having been a sidelines person, I think she's quite involved with the project, even though she lives over at Oxford and obviously has family and other business commitments. So we're very grateful for her ongoing interest there. But the cost element that I'm going to be suggesting, and this is why I'll need to deal with it outside of the meeting, is the initial meter needs to be cut every couple of weeks to just get on top of it so that it just looks good ongoing. And on top of that, there is a requirement, obviously, to then start to eat into the areas behind. And if you're going to approach it, you could have a 6-man team that's going to take you a few days to do. But we're looking at it on a bite-sized pieces basis to say, well, okay, let's tackle it bit by bit. We need involvement with local people as well. But overall, and I apologise to Ian here, I've not come back on this, but I've been talking it through with Tom. We're looking at maybe half a day a week for the time being to actually start to get on top of this and tackle it. There is a cost, and I can't circulate that until I get it later on this evening. But in terms of the principle, I'd just like to just get a general feedback before we start putting our numbers together, because there's been a lot of work done on this. Rose's email is a result of, I think, of obviously her thinking, but also our input from the meetings. And I think we're at the stage now where we do need to start pressing some buttons, albeit we appreciate that we need a bigger plan. But what we don't want to do is do the bigger plan if everyone says, look, you shouldn't be spending money on this, in which case let's forget it. So it's more in principle, how does that sound? And were there any issues from what I sent through, although I appreciate that was probably sent too late for lots of people to read.
Right, thanks, Paul. Well, I mean, I guess I can speak for everybody when I say you and Ian, helped by Rose, have done a fantastic amount of work there, clearly. That email of Rose's, I think I've read it a couple of times and still probably only digested 10% of it. There's a lot of material there. And I guess I don't know whether you've got your head around the nature of what she's proposing in detail or not, but
well, I think the latest email is the compromise after her first email and our discussion. So Ian, I should have explained that Ian and I are happy with what is now on Rose's email.
Okay, well, that's good to see. So, I mean, my impression, others will give their view, was that it all just sounds excellent. It's brilliant to hear that the appearance of the village is getting this sort of detailed attention now. It can only benefit the village, from what I can see, in the long term, if we go down this road. And inevitably there will be cost associated with that. You don't win something for nothing of this size. And I would be very keen that we do go down there, and we not pay what it takes, because obviously we've got to be as frugal as we can be, but we acknowledge that there will be a cost to getting the result that we're looking for.
Just a point which I probably should have made is, if you look at the exercise we did down School Lane, and I stand to be corrected, Ian, but I have a feeling we were down about an hour and 3/4 just to do that lane, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I told my wife we'll be back in half an hour. So I think she thought we'd stopped off at the pub on the way back, but it is, there's a lot of work, but there's one of Rose's original suggestions, which I shied away from to start with. She said, well, we need to get the whole village motivated with this and involved in their individual lanes, and used to get teams and things. And I thought, no, that's not going to work. But when you go down School Lane, you realise that there are a lot of people that are already cutting their own verges, and will probably have a bit to say about how they see their own lanes. And I can think particularly for Church Lane, I'm bereft of ideas at the top, but at the bottom I've got some clear views, and happy to throw my weight in to help out a bit as well. So I think actually her idea might have some mileage, but what we do need is definitely the manpower, I think, to do that extra, just keep on top of that first meter, which I think then makes the next bit back much more manageable. I don't know whether you'll agree with that, Ian, from our discussions and walk down the lane.
Yeah, I think what's important is that we get the management of the verges under control. Some of the verges are very, very steep, and the vegetative cover at different times of the year varies, and sometimes soil and stuff erodes onto the roads, narrowing them, and trucks swerve around and stuff like this. Some of them are quite overgrown. Lower Green Lane, the bottom end of School Lane, is a particular case in point. And other lanes like Church Lane, there are relatively large areas there which need a considerable amount of thought about how they're going to be managed. I would just say that Rose and I have booked up for a Berks, Bucks and Oxon Wildlife Trust series of seminars, online seminars on wildflowers and tree maintenance and stuff like that. So I hope to learn a bit from that, which we'll hope to apply. And there have been personal initiatives in the village, which unfortunately Big Bucks Council have kind of destroyed and left them ticked off, to put it mildly. But no, it's something that wants getting hold of, and there will be benefits in terms of how the verges look, and also maintaining particularly the steep-sided verges, so that they don't encroach on the road, and we have some nice wildflowers and other stuff to look at.
Yeah, I support it in principle. I think it's good to estimate it half a day a week per year. 25 full days. That sounds like it could be.
It wouldn't be a whole year, right? The workload is very different in the winter, obviously.
Yeah. No, I know, but I'm just saying 25 days total or whatever. But as long as it's reasonable hourly rates, it should be well within our reach, and something that I think we should support as a parish council.
Yeah,
but I think we'll have very widespread support, and I think people will definitely want to get involved, because I think this idea of kind of, I hadn't heard of this concept of getting a license to manage your own sort of bit of verge. So I think that's something we need to socialise as well, actually.
Yeah. We just on that point, I've just written publicity down here. In normal times, I would be saying we need to have a big meeting in the village hall to tell people what we're doing and get their thoughts and get their enthusiasm going. That's a bit difficult at the moment, but I think we should try and think about how we are going to publicise this and tell people where we're headed and invite people's thoughts and as well as their efforts into it.
Yep.
I think if the council produced a draft verge management plan for consultation by the villagers, however you did it, whether it was a big meeting or online or whatever, I think that's a necessary step to take.
Yeah, I guess that's a good vehicle for doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think almost, without sort of going overboard on graphics or whatever, but a photo of what it is now and what it could be. I think just to give people the idea, even if it's just a simple sketch. Was using something like Alicia, for example, with her artistic abilities. But just so we get the idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if a general agreement to that, John, I'm happy just to get some numbers and then circulate it so that we can, if you're happy with that, we can then sort of vote it outside the meeting. Obviously, we won't have a contractual commitment, so even if it's something we start and say, look, this isn't going to work, we can pull away from it. But initially, let's get I'd like to get the momentum going, but concurrently, obviously, try and get this draft management thing together at the same time, which I think we're sort of asking Rose to move ahead on from our last meeting, wasn't it?
So I suppose you can't put any sort of number down in terms of expenditure you might want to incur over, because we don't have a meeting until September now, do we? That's the problem.
No, but equally, Tom was due to send me a note this afternoon, which I haven't got. Then he's a busy man. So I think we can we'll probably get our heads together after he sent his proposals through, so I can take a shot at it. But if we say half a day a week for the next X weeks, so there'll be a number attached to that. We can either say, look, this works or it doesn't. It would at least take us through the growing season, if you like. I mean, ideally, you'd like to start this in the spring, and the way in which the stuff's been cut this year. It just shows you what happens if you leave it too long. It's chewed up very badly in lots of areas, so it definitely needs some work anyway. But there's going to be a finite number of times that this is going to apply between now and the end of the growing period anyway.
Okay, well, I think given where we are, and I'm not hearing anybody having any problem with this. I guess we've just got to press on. I know you'll be reasonable on the costs. If we've got to spend a bit, we've agreed before that there's a degree of delegation and expenses, and as long as you check with everybody, as I know you would informally, then I think that's a safe way forward.
No, well, I'll certainly, I wouldn't dream of authorising anything without coming back and getting everyone's approval to the amounts involved. Yeah,
I've just got one detailed question, Paul. I know where Tom came from, so I dealt with his original sort of cold call email to us, and it's great that he's turned out to be as enthusiastic as he is.
Yeah.
The question we've got to answer is should we be seeing what other people would cost if we're going to hire some new help? I leave that question sort of hanging, and probably
I think the only thing
as a more important, how about Graham?
I've already spoken to Graham, and he doesn't want any commitment beyond what he's doing.
Okay. Right.
So that was my first line of approach, and he said no.
Okay, all right. Well,
and frankly, most of what Graham does, I know he obviously does the edges with the strimmer, but a lot of it is sitting on the thing and the bike, and probably 95% of what we're looking at down in the lanes is non-bike, not non-sit-on.
Too steep.
A bit too steep. Yeah. But in terms of getting alternatives, John, I wouldn't know where to start unless you put an advert in. These people, I think, are very few and far between. The only people that I've come across are cash people, which wouldn't work very well, you know, for the village. You know, in terms of the parish council, we couldn't do that. And we will obviously have to check to make sure there's PI cover and stuff, which, you know, is in place. I do have one other person that I think I've spoken to before about the Haywoods, because they quoted on some of the tree work. But I think they're more of a, let's get them in to clear something, as opposed to we want this done every 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah.
So if anyone's got anyone else, fine. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have to be putting adverts in, which I think is a bit of a lengthy process. I think it's more a question of reasonableness. If it sounds as though what he's proposing sounds reasonable, frankly, I would run with it.
Yeah. Fair enough. I could be happy with that. Well, I am happy with it.
Just picking up Ian's point, if everyone is interested, I've sent this thing through on the Wild Parish webinars, but they do look very good. I'm actually attending the pond one. just to make sure that I've got everything in line here, although it's looking all right at the moment. But there's quite an interesting set of seminars that they're doing, and one particularly is on road birches and meadow management. So I think that, you know, others might find that's interesting. If you're happy, if you want to, rather, I could just forward this, so you could just have a look at it if you're interested. I think it's about £5 a session, isn't it, Ian?
Yeah, there are 5 sessions. If you book all 4, you get 5 for 20. Yeah. Helen had the original email, I think.
Yeah.
No, I must say, I thought they looked interesting. I mean, I've only got a small pond in the garden, but I thought I might benefit from learning a bit about how to manage it properly, rather than flying by the seat of my pants. It's the usual way of doing it.
Right, so I think that probably covers my lot. I do apologise for taking so long on that, but there's quite a lot going on. It's been quite a time-consuming exercise this month. So glad there's been no planning.
Yeah. Any questions, thoughts from anybody else before we close that subject?
No, I'm just very happy with the progress towards a more coherent approach to, you know, doing the right things in our village, and, you know, has my full support.
Sure. Indeed. Okay, well, once again, Paul, Ian, and through you, Rose, many thanks for all of that. Right, the next item is roads and curbing update. This one was down to me to feedback on. So it was really just a brief canter through where we are on 1 or 2 things. Obviously, the main work through the village has been done and it's looking rather fine. The new surface, new lines, the bus stop, I think we're in a much better place now in terms of the appearance of the village, which is all good, and hopefully the lines are having some effect on the traffic. The one piece of work still to do, which we've got agreement from Transport for Bucks to do for us, is to extend the edge white lines on the Crendon Road, certainly from where they are at the moment down to the village boundary. And I'm fairly confident that we've also got agreements to do them on the Aylesbury Road. I'm sure the offer was there. It sounded like it in the email. And we have said, yes, please. So I'm optimistic that we will get those edge lines extended on both of those routes when they do the lining work on the newly surfaced road to Crendon. So we will then, that will represent the end of the first phase of our works, the work that you started how many years ago, is it, John? Trying to get all that stuff done. So it's now complete, and we'll then have a chance to see whether we think there has been any material impact on the traffic speeds through the village, which was primarily what it was all about, as well as tidying the place up. The other piece of work that's going on is some curbing. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. It's been going on a while. It started by Nick some months back after he got the curbing lifted around the green. He identified quite a lot of damaged curbing around the horse chestnut tree island area. And he got a quote in to have it sorted, including some double height curbing in 1 or 2 of the more vulnerable spots. We all know where they are. We then talked about it and thought it might be an idea if we actually had 2 quotes, since it was quite an expensive piece of work. And so last week we had the first chap back because the work had expanded a bit, and also a second company in to provide quotations for doing the work. The new company that came for the first time last week, their quotation arrived today. I haven't sent it out. I'll get it out to you after the meeting. But essentially, it's about £6,000 plus VAT, and that's for they've got 7 different sites. They've divided it up into little bits of work, and it's on all of the corners around that area, and plus one at the other end of the green near Nick's place. All repairing curbing that's out, that's fallen out, been knocked over, putting double height curbing in on the vulnerable corners, as I say, and also because of that, there's a need to do something about that strip of tarmac along the tree island. It's not quite clear whether it's meant to be a footpath or not. I think it was, and the grass and soil has kind of dropped down over it and half hidden it. But if you're going to lift the curbing height at the end, you've got to lift the path height as well. So the quote, that 6,000 I mentioned, includes reinstating that little bit of tarmac just along the front of the tree there. So I'm waiting for an update to the first quotation to arrive. But what I'd like to do, if you're content when you see what I'm sending to you, you can see a bit more detail behind what I'm just saying, then I would look for agreement to get on and get that work done rather than wait another 2 months. I know Nick is keen to get it done as well, which would require authorisation of about £7,200 on curbing work. So I'll just pause and just see whether there's any immediate reaction to all of that. And I'm sorry if you're hearing it for the first time here.
And that sounds in line with, I think that's obviously gone up from the original first quote, I think, that was sent round, but obviously, you know, the extended work makes sense. So yeah, I look forward to seeing the 2 quotations.
Okay, so I'm hearing no objections, so I'm going to take that as...
Well, I've been a little bit involved in it, John, and you know, the work needs doing. Now we've had a closer look at it, as you say, we definitely do, you know, the amount of work needs to be extended that perhaps we hadn't fully appreciated, and the job needs doing, and we're getting 2 quotes in from, you know, 2 good operators, then, you know, we can make the right decision on it.
Okay. All right, well, as I say, I'll send it round, invite your further comments, but perhaps we can take it that we have approved up to 7,200 expenditure. I say up to, because if the other quote does come in cheaper, then obviously we'll go with that one. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to mention was just our work around the island there. This picks up the study that we had done, the recommendations for modifying the junction, and the what do we do next about it. So John and I had a discussion with Peter Smythe from Transport for Bucks about 3 weeks ago. It was during the course of the resurfacing work, and basically shared with him what it is we'd like to achieve and why, and essentially said that obviously this is a fairly major piece of work, and if it does go ahead, we wouldn't be able to afford to pay for it all ourselves. So in so many words, Peter, you'd have to put your hands in your pocket. The answer wasn't no. It also, of course, wasn't yes there and then, just for a request of that sort. And the outcome was that he's going to have a bit more of a detailed look at our proposals, than what we're trying to achieve. He did give us some initial feedback there and then, which was generally fairly positive. He reckoned we might have to change one or two bits here or there to handle the larger vehicles that inevitably will run on that route, but it was still feasible. He is happy to work jointly with us to achieve what we want, which was, I thought, positive as well. And we said we would prepare us a more detailed requirement so we can see what it is we're trying to achieve rather than look at the final answers. Better to start with the requirement than with proposed answers to it, although, as I say, he knows what we want. And we also said that we would be able to contribute some funding. We didn't talk figures at all. And we said that we would also expect to approach the community boards for assistance. So these are the replacements to LAF. So quite a lot of areas explored, balls gently set rolling, and we'll just follow up on that and keep you appraised as it goes. But it's just to let you know that things are happening. John, anything there that I've missed that I should have mentioned?
No, I don't think so. I think those are the three main areas. Do we know when the white lining work is actually going to happen? Have you had any more indication on that?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard back from Peter since I confirmed to him we wanted it done. Well, it was only first thing this morning. So, but you know, the road to Crendon has had the loose gravel dressing on it, hasn't it? So I guess it'll be at least a week before that either beds in or is swept up before they get the liners back to do that.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm thinking about Thursday, but the white lining work wouldn't require road closures of the sort that we saw 2 or 3 weeks ago.
No, I don't think it would. I get the impression it's a fairly quick job, actually. They just run the vehicle along there. And, yeah.
But we haven't had, Helen, have we, any, because usually, the last few weeks we've had a press release about road closures. There's been no local road closures information.
No, so one did come through on Friday, but there was nothing for this area. It was like Wickham and places like that. There was nothing in this area.
Yeah, so it looks, touch wood, as though we're through with road closures.
Yeah.
If there's anything local, I send it out. If there's not, then I don't take the bother.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on roads that you wanted to ask or comment on? Right. In that case, we'll move on to the second parishioners' question time. I don't know. Have we had anything in during the course of the meeting?
No, I mean, I must admit I've been a bit poor publicising the links, even though the links are all the same as last time. I haven't pushed anything on Facebook and the blog, so that probably hasn't helped. Even though it's just gone through the normal standard mechanisms of being posted on the parish council website.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, I guess we could push it, but this has sort of become a standard way of doing business now. And
what I'll do is I will, once we've finished, we've got the saved meeting, I'll probably push it out so people can then scoot through it, find if there's any bits that they're interested in, and then see if we get any feedback, obviously.
Sure. Okay, Keith, that'd be great. Thank you. So it brings us on to the last substantive items for information. So should we just go round? I'll go round in the order on my screen. Keith, anything you wanted to raise?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I don't know if you can see this, but here is the doesn't show up very well on the virtual screen, actually. No, okay. Well, that's done with batteries, and it's fully operational. So if anyone wants to have a play with that, they're welcome to do so.
Sorry, that looked like a hairdryer to me, Keith.
It looks very much like a hairdryer, but as you see, I have no need for one, so there's no
need for that
now. So a guy in charge of Community Speed Watch hasn't come back and told us, we're now free to do more Community Speed Watch activities, which apparently we shouldn't have been doing last time, but the data gathered, which I've yet to send round, has been very useful in sort of proving that we've got an enormous number of speeders even through a lockdown period through the village. So that's something we can come back to at a further point. On the other item I had against me, which didn't come up as an action item, but it came up as items for information. You know, I was given approval to go ahead and look at getting an SID, speed indication device. The thing that's holding me up is just understanding where that would be mounted. And I think we don't have any poles, for example, down the Aylesbury Road. I think there's one on the Winchenden Road. And there were, apparently, when we previously looked at one of these devices, there were fittings put in, you know, to put poles in, but nobody can find where these things were, where they, you know, where these footings were put in, which is a bit of a shame, really, because it'd be nice to reuse them. So that is a bit of an ongoing research to try and find who puts those in, because I don't, you know, I think we have to work in conjunction with BCC or Bucks Council as it is, in terms of putting poles on the verges, as we can't just do that off our own bat, I don't think. So that's the thing that's stopping that progressing at the minute. And I think that's it from me, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Paul, anything from you?
Nothing for me.
John?
No, nothing more from me, John.
Martin?
No, nothing from me.
Excellent. Ian, anything you wanted to add?
Only very briefly, tomorrow an online lecturer by a professor from Oxford University on natural capital, which I think will be quite interesting. And later this year, I will update the Chearsley Parish Natural Assets document, which I put together last year, and I'll send that round again.
Okay, thank you. Helen, anything you wanted to say at all at this stage?
No, nothing further.
Other than you going on holiday, having a well-earned rest for a week?
Yeah, a week off.
Very well. Well, I don't have anything either. So the only other thing is date and time of next meeting, which is Monday, the 21st of September. So just to emphasise that we don't have an August meeting. I don't think anybody around this meeting will have overlooked that detail, but just in case anybody watching isn't aware, we don't meet in August. So I think that's it. Thank you to our audience out there for your interest and following what's going on at Chearsley Parish Council, and thank you to councillors, officers and Helen for your contribution this evening. That's the end of the meeting.
Great, thanks all.
Right,
Thank
cheers all.
you.
Yeah.